Hey everyone, my name is Lizzie and today we'll be talking about the truth about juice in homebrewing. So I decided to make blueberry wine and here it is. I'm going to show you my fermenting jar. It looks pretty with a bunch of bubbles and the airlock is working well. CO2 is there, but don't be fooled. Seems like the fermentation has stopped. And how do I know that the fermentation has stopped? I started this wine on Tuesday and I waited 4 days. And after 4 days, it still tasted really sweet. So the initial gravity was it was a little high. It was around 1.104. And I would expect, typically when I use water instead of juice, I expect the fermentation to be done after a week. So 4 days in, your fermentation should already be done, especially if you're in a warm temperature. And these days it's been warm where I am. It's around 24 degrees Celsius. And the first day, the bubbles went crazy. The yeast loves the sugar of the blueberries. The liquid of the blueberries overflew into the airlock and fell on the white cap of the jar because there was so much CO2. So once you mix sugar and yeast, you produce alcohol, and a byproduct is CO2, which is illustrated as bubbles inside the airlock. My jar was too full and I didn't want to remove any juice or any blueberries yet from my fermentation jar because in the past I have used bananas. I mashed bananas and added them into my homebrew, and after leaving it there for a few weeks, the drink tasted rotten. Why, you may ask? Because the bananas were left outside with alcohol on it. I thought I could mask the rotten flavor, but it was too noticeable. I had to throw the wash, and I wanted to avoid this at all costs with this blueberry wash. So I wanted to remove the blueberries after a few days in order to avoid the rotten blueberry flavor. However, I was not even able to reach the removing of blueberries because it doesn't smell like alcohol at all. I opened it yesterday. It tastes sweet, it smells sweet, meaning there's something stuck in the fermentation. And this is not the first time that happens. I also tried to make red wine with juice, and what red juice did I use? I used cranberry juice. I used different types of cranberry juice, and both times the fermentation stopped. Therefore, the initial gravity was around 1.100 and it stopped at 1.08 or 1.07. Therefore, it's still high and I wanted to reach 1.000 or 0.990 as it should be. Then I did a little digging. Why does my cranberry juice never produce the red wine taste that I like? And I figured out that berries in particular have more preservatives in their juice, and preservatives are yeast inhibitors. Therefore, they act against the yeast, and you have to look at this in the ingredients. So whenever you're choosing the juice, you have to make sure there's not much preservatives. And what is a preservative, you might ask? So I have a cranberry juice here, white cranberry, really fancy, a white cranberry cocktail. And when looking at the ingredients section, I see sulfites. Sulfites are a preservative, ascorbic acid, which is also a preservative, and citric acid. So everything that does not sound familiar, or you have a question mark when reading them, you don't know what this ingredient is, it's probably a preservative, and they have to add it in juice, or else the juice would also be rotten after leaving it outside for few months, even a few years sometimes. With my cranberry juice, do not fret, I have it right here. This is what my cranberry juice wine looks like, and you see a little bubbling on the top. It's bubbling slower than the blueberry, definitely. However, it's stuck as well. It's sweet, it's the same thing as the blueberry. Both of them are in the same predicament, they're both stuck, and I use juice in both cases. The cranberry wine has been brewing for a little longer, and I tried to troubleshoot it by removing some cranberry juice and replacing it with water because water does not have preservatives. And when I added water, I made sure that it was warm temperature water because the yeast likes being active in 26 degrees Celsius roughly. I would even put hot water because the cranberry juice that was already in the jar was room temperature. So I wanted to add hot water, not boiling, but make sure the water is hot enough in order for the yeast to reactivate. And other ways to reactivate the yeast is to increase the temperature. So not only by adding water, but to add it in a warm room. You can reduce the preservatives by adding water. Therefore, it dilutes the cranberry juice and it'll have less preservatives in the whole container. And you can adjust for pH. So the optimal pH for yeast to work in is 5.2, and you can go a little lower, a little higher, it's okay, but not at the extremes. Therefore, I would avoid lemon juice or anything too acidic. I've previously added a lemon to make my wash a little lemony, and it destroyed the whole thing. The yeast didn't eat the sugar in this environment because it was way too acid. Lemon has a pH of roughly 3. I would not use lemon juice again. And as a matter of fact, I'm debating about cranberry juice. In the future, I just want to have something red, a red juice. What I got instead is this cherry sauce. And it reminds me of what you put on your turkey on Thanksgiving. But in this case, I'm gonna mix it in my wash because why not? The color is red. And as I was reading the ingredients, the preservatives are all the way into the end. So the two main ingredients are water and sugar, and the further down you go in the list of ingredients, the lower percentage of that ingredient is inside your product. Therefore, I saw that preservatives were really at the end. It shouldn't be much, but I would just add 1 cup. 1 cup of cherry to get the color right, and I'll stir with the water. That's what I did with the cranberry juice. So as I was diluting it, after adding water, the fermentation was still stuck. Therefore, I had to remove more cranberry juice and add more water. And at this point, the color was more like faint red, and I added food coloring. And I'm just debating at this point, is it not working because of the preservatives or because the pH is too low? I've done a bit of research on the preservatives of fruit, and after finding out that both my blueberry and my cranberry wines have not fermented till the end, I searched the pH of blueberry and it's pretty low. This is what it is. We also have the pH of cranberry juice, which is also low. So generally berries do not have a high pH. However, I've always used apple juice to make ciders. Since apple juice is the juice that it takes to make ciders, apple juice has always worked without fail. Regardless of which apple juice I use, it always ferments until the end. I have a cider that's brewing. It's ready by now. Fermentation is done and the final gravity is at 1.000. The apple juice box, there's preservatives. In this case, the pH not be as low as the berries, because as I looked at the table of pH for fruits, apples was around 3 to 4 and berries range between 2 to 3.5. Therefore, berries typically have a lower pH. And in a past video, what I did to increase the pH of my wash, for that lemon example earlier, I added baking soda and it did increase the pH, but it made the drink disgusting. I couldn't drink it, I had to throw it away. Therefore, this time I decided to buy another product this time, and hopefully it doesn't affect the taste as much. I'm gonna add it to the blueberry and to the cranberry wine to improve the pH for the yeast to be in an optimal environment to finish fermentation. And if you'd like tips and tricks on how to make your fermentation go to the end, book a class. The link is in the description below. We'll guide you through the different ways and different steps to take to have yeast ferment all the sugar present inside the wash. And for the next times that I want to make red wine or white wine, I will just use a cup of the cherry. I'll use 1 cup of the white cranberry, or 1 cup of red juice, and the rest will be water. And I will have to compensate with the color by a little bit of food coloring or squeezing some extra berries to make it more red, or adding brown sugar if it's too pale, because I do not want to risk having a too low pH or too many preservatives in the drink. And honestly, so far I've only used specific juices to make my wine, and this is because I want to get as close as possible to real red wine color or real white wine color. Therefore, I'm using either red juice, white, or golden type of juice. I try to avoid mango or pineapple because they would not reflect the same color as white wine. In the case of the blueberry, one of my students requested it, therefore we're trying it out. And I must say, mashing fruits is a plus. However, I would suggest to remove them after a few days to avoid the rotten flavor and to make sure that your wine tastes delicious once it's done. And if you found this video valuable, share with a friend. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.